This episode was made possible by my generous supporters on Patreon. Welcome to our first and new Patreon, Ranma Yasha, my eternal rival. Since time immemorial, people have heard the tales of the legendary Chainsawman. Half chain, half saw, and half man. Or I mean, if you wanted to be pedantic about it, half chain and half saw man. Or half saw, half chain man. There is no other possible combination. Launched as a jumpstart around 20 issues ago, this manga is the work of Tatsuki Fujimoto, author of among others Fire Punch. It's immediately gained a certain reputation among my peers, and while opinions were pretty polarizing, most voices I've heard seem to agree that it stood out within that Shonen Jumpstart run. And yes, it has been a breath of fresh air in some aspects of it, depending on if your definition of fresh includes a naturalistic, alienating contemporary dystopia full of blood and dirt and shallowness. And with all that being as far from friendship, effort and victory, the mantra of Weekly Shonen Jump, as humanly possible. As it's a very new series to the magazine, I suppose a summary would be in order. But before I get to that, I want to clarify. So far, I want neither to praise nor condemn Chainsawman for being so different from the rest of the Shonen Jump roster. Nor can I separate it entirely from my judgment of it, as I don't think that would be entirely possible, or possible at all. So rather, I want you to keep in mind, here is Chainsawman, it is very different, and that might be a thing that can influence me in some fashion. Now that that's out of the way, let's get to it. Part 1. The Man. The opening scene immediately sets up that ugly tone that Chainsawman wants to channel. We are introduced to Denji, a boy living in extreme poverty, who needs to sell his kidney, eye and testicle to survive, and pay his dead father's debt. Most of his income comes from his devil hunting job, where he's subjected to exploitation, ridicule and valued mostly for his subservience, which will be important later. His dream, his grand ambition is to eat a jam sandwich, hug a girl, and play video games with her. So, not really your typical shonen protagonist, right? Turns out he can't even dare to dream, as his debt collector doesn't see him as profitable anymore. So he decides to dispose of him. However, the devil he made a contract with, Puchita, reforms his cut-up body and replaces his heart with their own, granting him the power of the Chainsaw Devil, in exchange for Denji showing them his dreams realized. Denji is then reborn and he slaughters the Yakuza zombified by another devil, effectively ending his debt. Finally, Makima, a public safety devil hunter, catches him in her arms, offers him work and food, realizing his dream. The first chapter of Chainsawman doesn't offer more than it needs to. It's just a cathartic story of an underdog who was put through hell but managed to find some better things in life. It functions well as a one-shot, nothing more, nothing less. Neither it nor the subsequent chapters are very interested in establishing a world that the reader would be interested in following. The world of Chainsawman is basically our world, except with devils in it. And there is either more wealth disparity or a much larger part of the population is in a financially precarious situation. The most focused upon part of world building is the focus of the current story arc at the time of this recording, the Gun Devil, a stand-in for international terrorism. It is also during that time when we find out that in this timeline the Soviet Union still exists for some reason. What Chainsawman is more interested in building, however, is the general tone of the series, or let's be frank, the big mood of the series. Alienation, a desire to belong, a low sense of hope for the mundane. Nobody in Chainsawman has lofty dreams like becoming the Wizard King. The only character who comes close to that shonen trope is Aki, Denji's supervisor, as he wants revenge on the gun demon. Kobeni, the colleague, just wanted to go to college. Power, a blood fiend in their team, wanted only to rescue her cat at the start. She later came up with the idea of getting a Nobel Prize and becoming a Prime Minister, but we'll see how long that sticks. Meanwhile, Denji... Okay. Part 2. The Chain. The second chapter establishes what the relationship between Makima and Denji is going to look like. From the start, as Denji comes from a situation where he had nothing and could hope for nothing, he puts his boss on a pedestal and becomes immediately infatuated with her. Meanwhile, she makes sure to assert the hierarchy between them, demanding his obedience as a dog, and threatening him with murder otherwise. When ordered to chase after another devil, Denji has a bit of a rebellious moment. He is disappointed to have not been treated as a person in the end, and when confronted with a morally questionable choice, he considers running away. The choice becomes simpler when it turns out the devil has just deceived him. He completes his mission, comes back, and is fed udon by Makima. Thus, the stray dog has been tamed, and it only partly functions as a fetish. It also serves to further remove him from the typical shonen protagonist. His defiance goes only as far as his love for comfort lets him. This low energy is embraced by the art style, in which even the most expressive of faces will rarely leave the realm of dull surprise, accompanied of course by the omnipresent bags under everyone's eyes. Denji regains his admiration for Makima when she tells him Pochita is still alive inside him. She also encourages his feelings for her, which, from the looks of things, she does so that Denji stays obedient. He goes on to work in public safety in hope that he can one day pair up with her in more ways than one. As he defends his shallow motivations for joining the Devil Hunter service against Aki's arrogance, he has a moment where he questions her morality for a brief moment, but then remembers the comfort and affection that she brought him, so he stops in his train of thought. Now that Denji has tasted comfort, the next thing on his mind is the hedonistic pursuit of pleasure, which ties into our next theme, women's affection and sexuality, used as an incentive for labor and services of men. Yeah, there's no dancing around it. Power promises to let him touch her chest if he rescues her cat from a bad devil, that he does, and then Makima promises to grant him any one wish, including that, if he defeats the gun devil. Then Himeno, Aki's partner, offers a kiss to whoever kills another devil. There are a few things that make this stand out from the run-of-the-mill objectification. Despite women being shown in positions of power, the female sexuality is still presented as something to give up, to trade, to exchange for some favor. Arai, the new recruit, spouts from bollocks about a kiss being something an unmarried woman shouldn't so easily give up, yada yada yada, while Kabeni, the other recruit, mentions she was given a choice between becoming a devil hunter and a sex worker, in exchange for her brother going to college. All four major female characters fit into this hierarchy of choosing or not choosing to offer sexual or sensual pleasure as a reward which the men crave. And while female characters seemingly have agency in all this, the focus is never on their pleasure, but on the reward aspect for men. And when so many characters fall so neatly into this hierarchy, it almost seems like there might be a point to it, and it seems scary to think the point is something not unheard of in a Stefan Molyneux video or a Black Pill philosophy thread. See ContraPoint's video on incels if you want some more context on the latter. I thoroughly recommend it. Link in the description, of course. Rather than lying down and rotting, Denji adopts the acceptance of that hierarchy and this place within it, and wants to get the most pleasure and the most new experiences out of it. Whether incels would call him a cuck or a pickup artist is not my place to say. So there we go. Chainsawman offers a harmful, hierarchical version of masculinity and treats women as rewards men are entitled to, are allowed to feel entitled to for doing a good job at something. So why do I still like it? What is the saving grace of Chainsawman? Part 3. The Saw. Denji is an alienated worker in a system that has been shown to consider it profitable to keep him that way, because it's the only way to incentivize him continuously for minimum cost and maximum profit. The way he keeps getting rewarded is admittedly pretty cost-effective, and by profit I don't necessarily mean the monies, but any goal that devil hunters want to accomplish, be it the extermination of all devils, which is just another kettle of fish waiting to go off. What I find interesting about this is in terms of future developments. Will Denji ever catch on? Or like the black pill folks, will he end up blaming women instead? And if so, how is it going to be framed? These questions are at least worth considering before we say that the manga is bad because the main character is motivated by boobs. The shame. So yeah, let's take a closer look at the alienation question. The only meaningful relationship Denji has ever had up to this point has been with Puchita, the dog demon inside him. As we get to know more and more characters, we see that their interactions are hierarchical, stilted, either ridden with falsehoods, antagonistic, too over the top, or too downplayed to seem genuine. We don't see the characters ever interact with people outside the organization. They are defined by their ability to perform labor, and in the case of Denji, literally dehumanize if they can't obey orders. Whether consciously or not, Chainsawman draws the reader's attention to that through its weird character dynamics, art style and storytelling. The characters are cut off from society, or sawn off, if you will. Shut up, it's a good pun, you just have no taste, that's all, yeah. This gives the manga a certain charm I can't find in any other Jump series, a demotivated world in which the protagonist searches for just an ounce of closeness and affection will speak to many people. I have no idea what it's going to do in the future, and that's part of what makes it so exciting to me. Nevertheless, if Chainsawman actually wants to tackle that alienation at one point and search for the root of its problem, there's a few routes it could take. The broke route is definitely possible, as I could see Denji just going, "Oh, these femoids, these worms are taking advantages of us. I should be a real man, trademark, and assert my place at the top of the hierarchy, or lie down and rot." Or he could go all, "Oh, it's in someone else's interest to direct my frustration at women. What is the actual cause of me feeling so alone? Is it enough that I make some changes to not feel that way, or is there something larger at play here that I have no control over?" Or I mean, it could be also just an edgy story about a boy who turns into a chainsaw demon, I don't know. Perhaps before we finish, I should draw some attention to another element of the manga that made me feel hope for better things to come. When Denji claims his reward from power, he feels empty afterwards, realizing that touching breasts isn't a moment of heavenly bliss where angels from above descend, but something prosaic, something ordinary. And, this fall from the sacred to the profane is kind of rare in shonen manga, to say the least. And what follows from Denji's conversation with Makima later on is surprisingly mature in its obsceneness, as it makes a point about the relationship between affection and familiarity. Perhaps my friend Hoven described reading Chainsawman best. It feels like the equivalent of someone spraying some obscene, vulgar, but oddly artistic graffiti into the pages of Jump. What also feels like obscene, vulgar but oddly artistic graffiti is the YouTube algorithm, a dark abyss of sorrows and woes from which videos like these never resurface. To help me navigate it, you can subscribe if you haven't already, click the like button or share the video on social media. If you're feeling extremely generous, you can also consider supporting me on Patreon, where you can get access to rewards such as putting your name in the credits, getting a World Trigger avatar, or taking part in our little Q&A session at the end of every Manga Mosaic. This week, Lumramayasha asks, What fascinates me about Chainsawman is how Denji's desires for intimacy with women are evolving. In the first chapter, he simply wants to hug a girl, and after that he wants to touch a girl's breasts, and after that he wants a kiss. What's interesting is that he's never quite satisfied when he actually gets what he wants, which results in him yearning for something else that he thinks will make him happy. Since his desires keep escalating, at what point do you think Denji will be satisfied, or figure out what will actually emotionally fulfill him? Well, that's a very interesting question, Sid. I would say not until he becomes aware of that state of alienation and is in the position to form meaningful relationships with people around him. That's not entirely dependent on him, as being fused with the devil and all makes him someone people won't easily want to be associated with. For that, he has to be conscious of the system that makes his relationships conditional and hierarchical. I expect that before that he might go through a phase where he wants to gain power and position when intimacy is not enough anymore. That is, if he doesn't go full on incel. What are your thoughts on Chainsawman, and what do you want me to talk about next? Your choices are Neolation and The Last Sayuki. Let me know in the comments and take care.